As we mark Women's Month in August here in South Africa, we're bringing women and their financial health into the spotlight, specifically retirement planning. Here's an interesting statistic to consider. Only 6% of South Africans are on track for a secure retirement, with younger females saving more of their income than men in the early stages of their careers. But this all changes over time. Why? Well, joining me to discuss this issue, I'm joined by Michelle Acton. She's Chief Customer Officer at Old Mutual Corporate, and Nosipho Nhleko. She's lead specialist in terms of retail investment proposition at Liberty. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us. Let me start with you, Michelle. What is the sort of status quo right now for women in terms of their ability to have a decent retirement when it's time?
Sure. So I think the first thing is we do, as you mentioned, find that women do naturally save more throughout their working lifetimes. However, often for women, their working lifetimes are a lot shorter because of having to take breaks due to family reasons, children, etc. So you add that with the fact that when women get to retirement age, their life expectancy is actually a lot longer than men. It actually gives almost a double whammy. So we're finding that for women, retirement outcomes are actually a lot lower because they're saving for a shorter period of time during their working lifetime, but also they need more in retirement to be in the same financial position as a man. So
Nosipho, how do we solve for this reality? You know, how do we fill that gap? Is it about financial education?
I would definitely say financial education, but you know, a lot of people, I think, underestimate how much time they have. If you think about someone who, if you're fortunate enough, you started working straight after you graduated and retire somewhere around 60, you basically have about 480 paychecks that you are working with. And on those paychecks, you need to pay for rent, mortgage, house, utilities, children's education at some point. And I think we always think we have way more time. And also, if you are working for a company and you've got, excuse me, a pension fund, you might also think, well, I'm covered. But actually, you might actually not have enough. And as Michelle pointed out, for women, our life expectancy is much longer. So it's really about being intentional and strategic about how you budget, and not underestimating how much time you have to save for.
Yeah. So Michelle, you know, I think many South Africans, when they watch interviews like this, they may say to themselves, but it's all very well and easy for people to tell us to budget when we don't have much to work with. You know, increasingly in the South African context, we have a lot of casualization of labor. So for example, I've got a colleague who's pregnant here at the SABC. She's going to have to go off, but she'll only be able to take 2 months off because she can't possibly take more than that off to be with her child, because she only earns when she actually works. So how do you kind of bridge that gap? Because that's a reality for many women.
It is. And I think there's a couple of elements. There's not one solution in terms of fixing it. I think the first important thing that we've seen, if you look around the world, financial savings and budgeting element, it's not about how much you earn. It's almost a practice. It's a discipline. And it's about starting even if you start small. And absolutely, I think part of the challenge we have is that we're not empowering women with the understanding of how to handle situations like that. Like, I mean, I know when I was, for example, on maternity leave and all of a sudden the bills don't go, but the salary does, it's about being able to have those conversations with people you owe, you know, banks and home loans and cars, to try and adjust repayments, which they actually do, believe it or not, while you're on maternity leave. But I think it's something that it's about planning. It's about starting small and building up. And it's also about, as a woman, we need to kind of empower ourselves with putting small bits away so that we've got enough rainy day fund to make sure we can handle those knocks. But no one, you know, it's when you look at financial planning, it's about easing it up. So we see that it's not we've got people who've got very low incomes who are managing to budget and save, and then you've got people with very high incomes who are not managing to budget or save. So I think a lot of it shows that we've got to kind of start the practice and ease up. But it isn't easy. It isn't easy. And I think the other challenge we've got as being a woman is society, everything's leaning on us. We see in expense profiles, women's expense levels are very much more around family support, children, education, healthcare, etc. There's a lot less incidental spending of materialistic things. It's more what do we need.
Yes.
And so it's how do we empower women more to be able to know how to do that properly, to make sure that we can manage on those things.
And so, Nosipho, what about the issue of time? You know, some people, especially if they don't have steady employment, they'll say, well, I'll wait to start saving for my retirement when I've got a steady job. But that steady job maybe never actually comes. How important is it to be invested even at a small level from when you're quite young?
Yeah, I mean, I ran some numbers on this, just a simple compounding interest stat. And if you started saving, say, 500 Rand a month at age 30 up until 60, you'd get about R1 million. If you started 10 years later at 40, that saved amount goes all the way down to just under 400K. So that's a 600K difference. So it's quite big. And I would echo Michelle's sentiments here of it's a lot about the behavior. So yes, you're thinking at this point in time, it doesn't make sense for me to save, I'll wait until. But if you get yourself into that habit of, you know what, you've got some instruments where you could save 250 a month, 500 Rand a month, and you just get yourself into that habit. And you know, some providers also allow you to pause for a bit, but at least you know that it's something that you can kind of go back to. It's something that you need to make kind of part of your financial habits.
Yes. And then lastly, Michelle, just in terms of maybe you're a more privileged female, you know, you have a retirement plan with your employer and so on and so forth. But of course, it's never quite enough, is it? So how important are things like retirement annuities, you know, having that additional retirement saving?
I think the two key elements to retirement savings, if you're working for an employer that has retirement funding, amazing, because it really enables you to have a low cost way of saving. But the two biggest levers we find is A, making sure when you do change jobs, you don't access money, because that is the mistake a lot of people do. They'll work for an employer, after 10 years, they'll change jobs and try and cash out as much as we can. We know with a two-pot system, that's going to be reducing, but it still is. So that the key thing is when you do change jobs, and we know, I think I was looking at a stat, the average person changes jobs between 8 and 12 times in a lifetime now. So it's quite high. So it's important to have that discipline. The second thing is, start saving and then do what you can to get yourself up to saving at the 15% mark, because some people will save 5 or 10% of their salary, but it's often not going to be enough when you get to retirement. So but you're not expected to do it overnight. So when you get your salary increases, put 1% each year additional into, and it gets there quite quickly. So I think the really thing is make sure you're putting enough away and make sure you leave it there for retirement. Because what people don't realize is we talk about working lifetime, right? So we talk about the fact that you've got 40 years of working lifetime, if you're lucky to be working for that full working time. But if you reach retirement at 60 or 65, life expectancies for women is 87. So that is 20 to 25 years in which you are going to be living on whatever you've saved. So it really is important. It's not about how many vehicles you save in. It's more about how much you are saving.
Indeed.
That is the important aspect.
Ladies, I would have loved to speak to you much longer because this is a very important subject, but thank you so much for your insights. I was joined in studio by Michelle Acton. She's the Chief Customer Officer at Old Mutual Corporate, and Nosipho Nhleko. She's Lead Specialist at Retail Investment Proposition from Liberty.